Hello, hello. Welcome to the Dyslexia Sight Word System free training inside of Days with Dyslexia. I'm just logging on. I'm a few minutes late. I'm not sure if Facebook changed something or I forgot how to do a live, but here we are. If you have been here before and watched one of my lives, you know that I haven't been able to figure out how to answer comments or questions during the live. Um, and so I'm trying a new setup. I've got my camera here, and then I've got my Facebook open on my computer over here. So I'm hoping that I can see comments as they come. So it's a learning curve for me to do these lives. We started them a few months ago. So I'm just checking on my computer to make sure that the live is coming up. So hopefully I can see the questions as they come. So, oh good. Here I am. And I'm going to try to watch for the comments. We'll see how this works. Okay, so again, I'm giving some people time to log on because I was a few minutes late. But we're going over the Dyslexia sight word system. And if you've been watching your email and following the feeds, ooh, you know what I didn't do? I want to make sure that you can hear me. We've got a couple people watching. We're going to give it a few more minutes. So while you guys are getting set up, if you've got specific questions, drop them in the comments section. And I'm going to get my microphone set up while we give some more people time to log on. Whoop, I just got a message on somebody on Messenger asking me if it was happening, so microphone, so hopefully you guys can hear me better now. Yes, no, maybe so for you, those of you that are on. Okay, you should be able to hear me better now. I hope so anyway. Okay, there's a couple of you on. Like I said, I've got a system that we're trying so I can answer questions as I'm on the live because I've had technical issues with that before, user error, I'm sure. Got my microphone set up now. So let's go ahead and get started. I know that a couple people ask me why I do these during the day when some people are at work, and because these are my working hours too, right? And that's why we record it so that people can watch it later at their convenience. I have a lot of days where I do clinic after hours, and when I don't, I spend that time with my kids, right? I've got 3 kids, they have activities, so we do these during the day. And if you can't attend, no problem. Just watch it when it works for you, okay? And then we keep them up there for a while. So we're talking about the Dyslexia sight word system because, as most of you know, sight words are the words that schools often just give kids and they say, okay, here, now you need to memorize these. And even schools that are getting it right with structured literacy now in the classroom as tier 1 instruction, a lot of schools changed to Orton-Gillingham after some new laws passed in Kentucky last spring. And so a lot of classrooms are using Orton-Gillingham to teach the scope and sequence of the relationship between letters and sounds. So even those schools that are getting it right with structured literacy in the classroom, we still kind of miss the boat on these sight words. Okay, so let's talk about what sight words are, what that really means. And what we usually mean when schools use the term sight words and when parents use the term sight words, what they really mean are those high frequency words that we use a lot that don't have an easily recognized pattern by the child, right? They have a low frequency spelling for one or more of the sounds. So a good example is a word like said, right? We hear that short vowel sound in the middle of the word, but it's spelled AI. And depending on how you pronounce the word again, those are really the only time that those spellings are used. Another word example is friend, right? Again, we hear the short vowel sound, but it is spelled IE in the word. Okay, so these are the words that kids are often just told, oh, you just have to memorize them. But here's the problem with that. is our kids often struggle to memorize those words. And even the kids that learn them well enough for a spelling test on Friday, they forget them a couple weeks later, or they can spell the word right one time and not the next time. And so you have this back and forth of they're spelling it right sometimes and sometimes they're not. So one of my mentors, Dr. Jan Waskowitz, she is one of the creators of the program called Spell Links that we use here in my clinic. She does she's a wonderful quote, and it's called it goes, every word wants to be a sight word when it grows up. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that what we should be thinking about when we think about sight words are words that are instantaneously recognizable when we look at them. That's what a sight word is. We recognize it apparently on seemingly on sight. I see a word, I instantly recognize what it is. That does not mean my brain isn't thinking about the connection between sounds and letters and meaning. It just means that it's a word I know so well, I didn't have to go through the process of thinking about it on a conscious level. It's still happening in my brain, but I know those connections so well that I instantly recognize the word. My sight word vocabulary is going to be different than your sight word vocabulary. Okay, the sight word of a physician is very different than the sight word of an engineer. And those two people have a different sight word vocabulary than someone who specializes in media arts, or someone who works in the restaurant industry or the retail industry. Okay, we have very different sight words. Sight word vocabulary is very different words that we're exposed to within our day-to-day life that we have come to know so well we can read instantly. Okay, that's what a sight word is, and that's where the expression every word wants to be a sight word when it grows up comes from, because we want kids to learn these words so well that it seems as if they recognize them on sight, but their brain is still thinking about sound, spelling, and meaning, even if it's not happening on a cognitive level, right? They know the word so well, it just seems to happen without them having to think about it. Okay, so what we're really talking about today are those high frequency words with low frequency spellings. Okay. Someone is still messaging me. Is it happening? I hope they get in here because it's happening right now. All right. So that's what we mean when we say every word wants to be a sight word when it grows up. Okay, so how are sight words usually taught? Right? Flashcards, rainbow writing, repeated writings, just memorize the letters. Some reading programs will teach kids to tap it out on their arm, right? Friend, friend. Okay, and so the problem with this is the child is only thinking about the letter strings. And there is so much research that says for a child to know a word well, we have to connect sounds, spelling, and meaning always. So even if a word has a low frequency spelling, like in friend and said, we can still help the child connect sounds to letters to spelling in a way that helps them understand the word better. Okay? And so if your child is tapping out letter names on their arm, or they're writing the word over and over again, even if it's with pretty rainbow colors, and they're just saying the letter names, their brain is not thinking about sounds. Their brain is only thinking about letters. And if you've listened to me talk before, you know that we have to make this connection in the brain between letters and sounds. And so letters are things that we see with our eyes and we write with our hand. But sounds are the things we say with our mouth and we hear with our ears. And so in order to connect those things in our brain, we need to be saying the sounds of the word while writing the corresponding letter. And when we're doing that while writing, we are thinking about sounds and letters. And then we always can pull in meaning by having the child use it in a sentence. If the child can use it in the sentence, they understand it. Sometimes they need help with the syntax. Sometimes they'll try to use it in a sentence and you realize, oh gosh, they really don't. We need to talk about this vocabulary. Sail is a word that a lot of my kids, I'll say, can you use that? And they'll be like, oh yeah, sail. And I'll say, okay, great, use that in a sentence. And they'll say, I'm going to sail something. Oh, well, you're confusing the word sell with sail. And so we talk about that difference so that we can clarify the sounds in the word and the meaning that is attached to that. Okay, this is, you can also do things like practice different word parts and talk about meanings, right? Like if I write the word friends, we don't really hear the d in the word anymore, do we? But we need to know that we start with a base word friend and then we add on that S. And that's how you can bring in meaning and studying more of the word. So whether you read the research and it calls that triple word form, sound, spelling, meaning, developing a mental orthographic image of a word, there's some other phrases that are used in the research, but basically they all mean that we need to tie together sounds, spelling, and meaning always so that the child develops a strong connection between those three things. And they have a strong brain picture. That's what I call it with the kids that I work with in my clinic. We're developing a brain picture. But this is very, very, very different than just teaching them to memorize letter strings. Okay, so here's an example of what happens when we teach kids just to memorize letter strings. I have a child that I'm working with right now, and he's an older child, and he has some learning differences, and we're working on words like such and other, right? He's doing the short vowel sound with me. And he'll be like, such. Oh, I know such. And he writes S-H-O-U-L-D. There you go, such. And he's very proud of himself because he has memorized this letter string that goes together. And they both start with an S, right? So in his mind, he has spelled the word, but he has not thought about the sounds or the meaning at all. He has just memorized this letter string, and it's a longer word, and it's a word that is often taught as a sight word, and so he's memorized the letter string. But as soon as you bring in the sounds, the things don't match up, and so we work through that. And he does the same thing with other, right? Because we have this short vowel sound spelled with an O, which is a fairly common spelling, but not the most common spelling, right? It's not a U. And so he will write A-N-O-T-H-E-R, another, which is a very visually similar word, similar in meaning, but he's adding sounds on. And so if we had thought about the first sound in the word other, and we thought about how we spell that sound, we wouldn't have so many of those errors. Would it be perfect? Probably not. This child has done a lot of work, but that's what can happen when kids just memorize letter strings. They're not connecting sounds, they're not connecting meaning, and so they can't use it functionally when they're trying to write. Okay, so flashcarding doesn't help kids with spelling, right? It might help them learn to recognize the word when they're reading, but it's not going to help them with spelling. And if you've listened to me before, helping a child, improving reading will help with reading. Improving spelling will help with reading and spelling. So when we're talking about these things, we're talking about writing them and looking at the connection so that we can write the word, because that builds a stronger connection in the child's brain between these letters and sounds and meaning. Okay, so why do we have these sight words that all of a sudden kids are taught to memorize? So here's where it comes from. Most schools will use either like a Fry, it's called the Fry word list, or the Dolch word list. So we're going to talk about the Fry word list. They're fairly similar. There's some differences. They're highly used words. So there was a man named Dr. Fry, and he had a good idea, and he sort of analyzed newspapers and early curriculum, and he was like, you know what, we have these words that if kids can read these 1,000 words, they'll be able to read almost anything, right? Besides very advanced and complex things. But if we can teach them these 1,000 words, they'll be good. And so he created this word list, right? And these are the words with less common spellings for very common words. And so what happens is usually in kindergarten, kids are expected to learn either the first 50 or the first 100. In first grade, they have to learn the next set, second grade, the next 100 set, third grade, the next 100 set, and then it usually stops. But anyway, so it was this really good idea. Let's make sure kids know these words. These are high frequency words. They're going to be exposed to them a lot. They have low frequency spellings. Let's make sure they know them. And that's a great idea. But we need to start teaching them a different way. We need to teach them in a way that the child is able to understand and retain the information because we have connected sounds, letters, and meaning. Okay, so how do we do that, right? How do we do that becomes the question. And so I have created a resource for you to use. And it goes through making sure that when you're working with your child to do this, that you are connecting sounds. You are talking about how many syllables are in the word, how many beats are in the word, that you are talking about how many tiny sounds are in the word, right? And those are the individual sounds in the word. It makes sure that you are connecting meaning, okay? And it gives you a way that you can analyze the word to make sure that every time you are talking about sound, spelling, and meaning. Now, can you take this and get the word list, right? Get the first 300, 500 word lists off the internet, and then go through and talk about how many beats are in the word, how many tiny sounds are in the word, and practice using the word in sentences, and practice writing the word, making sure that they're saying the sounds that connect to the meaning. Without this resource, you absolutely can, and you should. I just tried to make it a little bit easier for you because I've taken those the first 300 are done, the next groups are coming, and I've organized them by sound. Okay, and there's a really interesting thing that happens when you organize them by sound. Because what are we told about these words? There's no patterns. You just have to memorize them because there's no patterns. But when you organize them by sound, there are patterns. For example, in the first 300 high frequency fry word lists, 60% of the words with the short vowel ah sound spell that sound with an A. Don't you think that's a pattern that we should be teaching our kids? That the ah sound can also be spelled and is many times spelled with an A? Yeah, let's teach them that pattern so that next time they come across a word like water and they sound out water, they're like, oh, water, right? Because they know and they've studied this word and they know that that's a possibility, that A can also represent the ah sound. Father, salt. There are so many words that use A to spell the ah sound. Farm, card, tall, ball, right? Let's teach them this pattern. Another word or another error that kids have a lot is they hear words like farm and they leave out the vowel sound completely because they hear R. And many times this is taught as a single sound, which in fact it is a short vowel ah sound with a consonant and then the right? And so we have to teach them to separate that vowel sound from the consonant so that we know that we need it, right? Because every syllable needs a vowel sound. And so if I write farm and I write FRM, I don't have a vowel. I have to be able to hear the vowel sound. So there are patterns in there that we should teach our kids. And so that happens a lot with the sound. When your sound is a syllable, like in water, that's a word we talked about already. Sometimes they'll just write an R, especially when they're first learning, and so we have to teach them these things because no child just automatically knows how to spell things. They have to be taught, and they have to be taught these patterns. And so if we show them these first 300 words and we're like, hey, listen, when you hear this sound and it's in a syllable, it's probably ER. Now, with other words, it's not always ER, but that's a pattern. It happens a lot. And so the Spell Links program that we use in my clinic goes through all these sight words. But what I noticed when my daughter was in kindergarten last year and now first grade is that the school expects kids to learn these words very quickly, much too quickly when a child has a learning difference, right? It's too many words for them a week and they can't keep up. And a lot of times their working memory is impaired. And so parents need a system to be able to work with these kids at home to teach them how to connect sound, spelling, and meaning at the pace that they're ready for. Okay. And so, like I said, you can absolutely find these word lists online. You can go home, you can start talking tonight about take a word that they're trying to learn. How many syllables does it have? How many tiny sounds does it have? Can you use the word in the sentence, right? Is this a base word? How many units of meaning does it have? Or is there a word part on it? Do you see something like ed, ing, s, and what does that word part mean? And then we're going to practice writing it. We're going to practice writing it in a way that makes sure that as we're writing the letter, we are saying the sound that that letter is spelling. Okay, and that's how you're going to connect sound, spelling, and meaning. And so, like I said, I hope that you guys go home and start implementing this right away. But I have put together a resource if you kind of want the answer key, right? That's why I did it. It's the answer key to how to separate those words. Okay, and so the first 50 are ready. Okay, and hold on, I got something come up. 50 are ready, and I've analyzed the first 300, and my administrative assistant is helping me get it all into a format for you guys. And so here's the thing, this is going to be available on my website later. And I'm going to offer you guys those first 50 words for free, right? You can get the resource, you can use it. You can post in the group if you have questions on how to use it. I'm going to give it to you for free. And I want you to use it. I want the feedback. And if you give me feedback, honest feedback, by answering a couple questions or sending me a video that talks about how it worked for your child, when the full resource comes out, you will get a huge discount code if you want it. And so this is a way that I'm trying to help you guys. I'm giving you this information. I also want many, many, many more people to have this information. And so letting other people know how it helped your kids will then help them, right? The goal is to get this information out. So you can use the information from this video right away at home, whether or not you use the resource that I've created. I've given you the information. If you want some guidance, you want the answer key, I'm going to give you the first 50. And if when the rest of it is available, you want to use that and you send me feedback on that first 50, I will give you a big discount code. So I hope that this was helpful. I'm going to go over to my other screen and see if there are any comments that I have missed. Hold on a second. Oh, I see a hi. Hello. I got a wave, but no questions. All right. So we're at about 30 minutes. I try to keep these to about 30 minutes because I know you guys are busy too. Oh, there's Miss Brandy. Thank you. I'm glad you thought it was helpful. So I'm going to hold on here for a few minutes. So we don't have a whole lot of people watching live, but if those of you that are on live have a question, I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask it. If you are watching this via the recording, then you can post a question and I will come back to the video and try to answer them as best I can. And if you guys have questions about other things, you can always post it in a group. And if it's something that a lot of people have a question about, maybe that will be the next video. Maybe that will be the next video. So while I wait to see if any questions come through, I'm going to say something off of today's topic. For those of you that are watching in Kentucky, I want to make sure that you know that a few weeks ago, the Kentucky Department of Education released some clarification on eligibility for the SLD educational category. Because what was happening is that school parents were being told that if you were getting an evaluation for specific learning disability and your district used the discrepancy model, and the box that they check where they say, no, there was no discrepancy according to these charts on KDE's website, they would say, oh, we can't qualify your child. There was not a significant discrepancy on these tables and our hands are tied. Well, that was never true, but that's what parents were being told. And so in the spring, I had a meeting with KDE about it. I let them know this was happening. After our meeting, they did their due diligence. They realized, oh my gosh, yes, this is happening. And so they released some clarification documents a few weeks ago that made it very clear that just because you check no on that box that the tables did not show a discrepancy, that does not automatically disqualify a child from eligibility for an IEP. It's a team decision. You have to look at all the data. You have to triangulate the data. You have to look at least 3 data points, and those tables count as one. Okay, so if you have a child and this happened to you where they said, oh, I'm sorry, your child is not eligible because we checked no on there not being a discrepancy on the tables, you might want to revisit that with your school. And again, this is not new information. They just released some clarifying information. So that's for my Kentucky people. Brandy says, yes, 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 not new guidance, just clarification. And that is absolutely true. I've already read at least one email from a school that said, given the new guidance, but it's not new, it's clarification. Okay, so there's no questions. I hope today was helpful for you guys talking about the sight word system. How do you get the free bonus if you want it? You can just drop a comment on the video that says free bonus, please, and I will send it to you. And you get the first 50 words, you get the worksheet where you can work through it all. It's going to help you determine exactly how many tiny sounds are in the word, exactly how many beats. It's going to show you how to practice writing it so that you connect sounds and letters when you write. It's going to make sure you remember to use it in a sentence, all that good stuff for the first 50. One thing I will say, if there are any teachers / clinicians on here, because I know there are some in the group, the identification of this number of sounds in the word is based on a speech to print system. So if there are Orton Gillingham trained people in here that are teaching things like air and ear and R as a single sound, this is going to be different than that information, right? Because in words like car, there are 3 sounds, k, ah, and so that is how it's broken up. So it uses a speech to print system for breaking up those sounds. So if, like I said, you are so welcome to use it if you were Orton Gillingham trained, and that will benefit the kids to be able to separate that vowel sound from the consonant but it might look different than your training that you went through, and that's not bad. It's a different way of teaching because it starts with the sounds in the word and then it builds to the printed system. So just a little FYI there. Okay, so thank you, Brandy. Brandy's giving a shout out for my ebook. That's on my website, DaisyDyslexia.com. We already have a request for the free bonus. Yes, I will get that to you, Miss Elizabeth. And I hope other people ask for it. And I really do look forward to the feedback. There's some other things that are in the works to help you guys work with your kids at home. And we'll do the same thing. Before it is actually released on my website, you guys, because you're in this group, because you listen to the training, will get an opportunity to get it first, get it at a discount, and because I need feedback and I want to make it as good as I can for other people. So, all right. I hope you guys have a great day, And I hope I see you next month for the next month's training. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet. I've got some ideas spinning. So if you have any requests, again, put them in the group. Have a great day.